5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing? Obviously, it's Wednesday evening, 8 p.m., so it's that time for you to be enlightened. Be in touch with the Miller Boyz. The weekly talk show, we discuss a whole bunch of stuff. Most of the time, it's surrounding and impacting the African-American community in the city of Fresno. I'm always joined by my dear, lovely brother, who looks like he's ready for the wintertime.
Sitting outside, brother. I didn't know it was this cold.
Yeah,
I was tricked.
Yeah, it's cold out there, that's for sure.
You see it outside?
The weather is definitely changing. I forgot how to do a party. But anyway, so as I start off every week with, I've been talking about this for probably about, 9-8 months. It's voting season. Please make sure that you are participating by casting your vote. Just listen to some information for the earlier day. 62 million people have already sent in their ballots, or their ballots have been gathered and collected at the elections offices all over the country. Far out excessive or exceeds previous vote by mails and early voting numbers, and so that means that this is a high priority. A lot of people are energized and stimulated to go out and vote for whatever reasons, and they're doing it. So please make sure that you're doing your part and participating in the vote. Here locally, and actually this is national as well, voting proponents are saying do not put your ballots in the mail. We are 6 days from the election, and even the United States Postal Service in some areas are saying that they cannot guarantee that your ballot will be received in the elections office by the November 3rd deadline. So please, either vote in person, if your area allows that. Here in California, we have drop boxes. You can put your ballot, your completed ballot in any of the drop boxes. If you don't trust what's going on with the drop boxes, this Saturday, October 31st, Halloween, is when the vote centers will open. So the vote centers are areas or places where you can take your ballot actually in to talk with elections officials to be able to cast your vote and be able to submit that. Your vote center locations, as well as your drop box locations, are inside of your purple elections information. They have all of those locations in there. But again, the vote centers will be open this Saturday, October 31st. So the 31st, 1st, and 2nd, they'll be open. Most of them will be open from 8 to 5. There's a couple of locations that are open from 9 to 6. Certain locations, there are language. There'll be interpreters there, heavily in Spanish and in Hmong. But there's also some other languages, Farsi, and some other, I think it's not Farsi, Punjabi, as well as some other languages that will be available on the vote center. So please do your research on that. Please make sure that you cast your vote, and please make sure that you participate in that. I'm going to tell everybody, I'm encouraging everybody to vote yes on Proposition 15. That is a proposition that undoes Prop 13 from 1978. It forces businesses and corporations that generate over $3 million a year to pay their fair share of property taxes. Currently, those businesses are paying property taxes at a 1978 assessment rate, and so we need to get them to pay their fair share. That proposition, voting yes on 15, does not affect homeowners, does not affect agriculture, so agriculture is exempt from it. Like I said, with small businesses, if you generate under $3 million a year in your business, you are not going to be affected by it all. So please don't believe the hype out there. Please vote yes on Proposition 15. It's estimated to generate $11 to $15 billion a year in California that can be distributed to schools as well as municipalities, cities and counties and those type of things. That's my political front, man. What's going on with you, G?
Oh, being beautiful. Having conversations, there's a lot of stress in the world. I didn't know that people were that stressed out. I a guy at work asked me, how to handle stress, because we've had some conversations in the past. Oh man, the city of Fresno has and is still trying to put me through it. So I told him, understand that stress and anxiety, stress leads to anxiety. Anxiety is a manifestation of fear, and fear is not real. It's a mechanism to control you and your bodily functions, to tell you to run so that you can stay safe. But people without fear usually end up getting hurt. But if you can control it, there's nothing to be afraid of. He's kind of worried about going down to the Santa Cruz area Tuesday night during the vote because of all the stuff that everybody has been saying. I guess there's memos and all kind of stuff saying that people are going to act the fools, on November 3rd, Tuesday, the day to vote. And he was really concerned about that. And he asked me what I was going to do. I said, nothing. Keep on kissing in my back pocket and keep moving. I said, don't worry about it. Enjoy your life.
I don't think that California will be the rejection of the California places such as California and New York are not going to be heavily impacted immediately with some of this unrest that's projected. It's other places such as Pennsylvania, Florida, places such as that, and unfortunately Philadelphia is on fire right now with the execution, basically, that young man who was having a psychological break. Yesterday.
We're going to have to circle back to that. But I think that California is going to surprise some people with the unrest. I was in a gun store last week, and the guy, we got to talking, and he said that he's getting emails, 3 or 4 or 5, 6 emails every day about where to meet, what to do, and take our country back, and if the Democrats steal the election. And once again, he asked me what I thought about it.
This is the gun store owner?
This is the gun store owner.
So think about this. Why would he be sharing that information with you if his intentions was to do something nefarious?
I didn't say his intentions were to do anything nefarious. I'm saying that people were sending him emails and stuff. Just because you receive emails don't mean you're going to do something nefarious. I don't think that he was going to do anything. He was just saying that that's the way things are looking. Because he's getting this much information on a daily basis. So don't let it. My thing is prepare, and if it don't happen, then you walk away with a smile on your face. But if you prepare and something happens, at least you'll have an exit strategy and a strategy to defend, or a strategy to keep yourself safe. One of the greatest quotes I've ever heard was Killer Mike, who said, teach your children when they get pulled over by the cops to navigate that situation and survive the encounter. So that's a sound strategy.
But that's a different encounter though. That's an encounter where there's force on one side and no force on the other. If you've got force on both sides, that's a whole different encounter.
I don't follow.
So you got officers who have force, officers who have guns and lethal weapons. You have people citizens who are being pulled over, for the most part, who do not have lethal weapons with them, who do not have force. So that's a totally different exchange of a person who has a lethal weapon in their pocket and having an interaction with another person who has got a lethal weapon in their possession. The outcome is going to be totally different.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't quite understand. I was talking from the common person on election day, going to get something to eat with his family and encounter someone from the other side of the ledger, be it Democrat or Republican, who doesn't like the fact that they have a Biden sticker on their back of their car, or some sticker on the back of their car, and have something, as you say, nefarious in mind to attack someone who's just minding their own business in society. Once again, that encounter, you have to have a game plan an exit strategy to survive that encounter. I mean,
So
you know,
in your scenario, a person who is packing, who encounters a person who's not packing, the worst case scenario is that the person not packing is dead. A person packing.
I don't know where you're going with this because the average citizen is not packing.
Then I'm confused as to where you're going. Because when I'm saying
me on motorcycle, huh?
what I'm saying is that the best outcome is no matter whoever's packing, whether it's a police officer or individual, that a person having the same amount of force in their pocket or in their possession doesn't. That just makes the situation for me worse. Who's
Okay.
going to be?
So I gather that when I'm talking about the average Joe citizen who is not having something in their pocket, it's just out trying to enjoy themselves and their family on. No one has anything in their pockets, you know, just being accosted by the opposite side person saying and making that statement that, you know, hey, I don't like you because of X. Just my thing is just for the person to have an exit strategy to survive that encounter. No weapons, no guns, no nothing in anybody's pocket. You know, just survive the encounter. I took that analogy from Killer Mike, explaining to a group of African Americans that that's what they should teach their children when they come in contact with the police. It's not about being big and bad and telling the police what you're going to do or not going to do or being hot-tempered. It's a matter of surviving the encounter. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Which topic do you want to go to next?
Oh, I have a free and clear mind. The execution in the record in Philadelphia. How disgusting was that?
I haven't seen it. I purposely not look for it. I heard about it. I don't know what time it was last night, dude, but I've been up since 4:30 this morning, man, because I couldn't sleep. Because it happened last night.
Yesterday evening. No, day before yesterday.
So I've been having trouble just
Digesting it.
no, I wouldn't say necessarily digesting it. I just
Well, let's whack at it like this. How does that understanding make you feel?
what understanding?
The understanding that another African American male was executed basically by the police.
That's an issue for me. But here's the bigger issue. The wife, from what I understand in the story, the wife and it's either the mother-in-law or the mother. This guy had
Defunding the police would take a portion of the police budget and reallocate it. So, you know, I just want to make it clear that we're bashing the term defunding with two separate meanings, so that when people hear this, they'll understand that we're locked into our perspectives of that term defunding.
but here's another, this is another example. And you and I talked also about, I think one of the easiest ways to I shouldn't say one of the easiest. One of the first steps I think that needs to be happening is that 911. Everybody talks about privatization. 911 needs to be privatized. 911. I don't know how it is in other cities, but here in Fresno, 911 is part of the police department. It needs to be taken out of that. That needs to be taken away from that department. Those operators, those people who are the first contact with the public, who have to make some reasonable decisions about what service is best provided in a particular incident, needs to be removed from the police department. Needs to be removed from the police department. I think that would be one step that could happen. And whether it goes into another city agency or whether there's somebody who creates, like they do with these security officers and stuff, somebody creates an entity that does 911 calls and does all the training and everything. I think that's number one. I keep hesitating to say use the word easy, but it seems like it would be a simple first step to be able to make that separation.
Well, I disagree with that. Having worked in that institution, I think that the issue is that it goes back to what I always say. It goes back to a training issue. The 911 operators are heavily stressed. When the police department was trying to get me to quit, they put me down there with those ladies for 9, and I worked side by side with them for 9 months, and I could see the stress levels that they were dealing with. So they need the proper training. It's not as easy as going in and picking up the phone and listening to somebody on the other end with a critical situation, which they're trained to handle that. If you can train them to do that, you should also be able to train them to gather enough information to direct a phone call in the proper direction. And they are civilians. And here's something that was batted around since I was first hired by the Fresno Police Department in '95. With Jerry Dyer now being the mayor, he's going to make a move eventually, probably, if the lines stay straight, to be the sheriff and then he will what they've always wanted, as the police department, the sheriff and the police department, where they would have 911 dispatchers for the county and the city in one, as they have said and stated, cost-saving mechanism. And so it's I think it funnels down back to training and an abundance of people.
Why not take the 911 responders and put them under the Department of Social Services entity?
Because there's some critical training and understanding that goes along with having them in a situation where they can understand the mechanisms of and timing for calls to be responded to. If you're the female in a headlock and you're calling 911, you don't want it to go to social services and then be redirected or rerouted to the police department. You would rather have it go to the police department first for the determination and then to social services. So it's kind of the same way. It's kind of the same way when 911 first was implemented, and you dialed 911 from your cell phone, and you had a city issue, and it would go to the CHP first, and you lose critical minutes there, trying to discern that if it's a 911 emergency or not.
So then what you're saying is that police officers need to be trained to be first responders no matter what the situation is. Whether it's a critical situation about life and death, or whether it's a psychological break, whether it's a domestic dispute, what you're saying is the police officers should always be those first responders to those situations. Because
that's not. No. Once again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the phone call should go into the police department first, which is connected into the police department through the 911 dispatchers.
But like you're saying right now, it's critical time about a lady who's in a headlock. Well, the young man who got killed last night, there was critical timing about who was responding to his issue. Because what I understand is that there was two responders. There was the police that got there first, and the medical people, who was also requested, showed up secondary. By the time they got there, they had already shot the kid. And so that's what I mean about, and I understand about the training and all those other type of things. My concern is that as long as 911 is under the police department, everything is a nail, and they're coming at it as a hammer. And that's what my concern is. There's got to be a way, whether they come up with you've got an emergency situation where it's life and death, you call 911. If it's a situation that's psychological, then you call 811. If it's, I don't know, something else, you call 711. We've got to come up with another situation rather than funneling everything through the hammer, through the police department, which is the hammer. We've got to be able to funnel, like the young man in Philadelphia, we've got to be able to funnel those situations through another entity. Because if we continue to go through the police department, unfortunately, I think we're going to continue to get these results, the outcomes that we've been having.
Well, yeah. We will continue to get the results that we're having until the proper training has been dispersed and implemented through the people who are doing the job. If the police officers that responded to that critical incident and situation had the training as officers, such as in London and different places where they waited till 8 or 9 people show up with shields and rush the guy with shields because he has a knife and you can't stab through a shield, and body weight and pressure holds him down. That's a training technique that they could use to disarm this person. Yes, it's all about training. No matter what the situation is, it's about training.
Again,
it's not always about just because you're a police officer, you're a hammer. But I understand the current mindset of police officers and how they conduct business currently, where they put themselves in a position where they are hammers. Well, they have to be retrained so that they can understand that they're not hammers. They might be the tool bag. And in this situation, we're gonna park a block and a half down away from him, and we're gonna wait till we have 4 people, because he hasn't harmed anybody yet. He has a knife. We're gonna wait till we have a group of 4 people. Someone's gonna have lethal. Someone's gonna have a less lethal. Someone's gonna have a shield. Someone's gonna be able to talk to them, or the arrest person. You attack the situation in different ways, and all of that comes through training. It's not just. I was listening to another radio station here in Fresno early this morning, and they were frustrated because they're saying that, how come he couldn't just listen to the police, the police? And then they talked about how people should be trained. Well, if you've never taken on the position of talking to someone who is not in their right mind, be it drugs or, an impaired state or a chemical imbalance in the body and the mind, you don't know what you're walking into. You have no idea what that person might do. And I've encountered them all, from people on PCP to people shroomed out to people who are out on a limb, alcohol or emotional states and breakups. People. So
let me ask you this question: Where did you get trained to be able to respond to those situations in the manner in which you do?
Life experiences and through the police department and training.
Amen. I'm glad you said that first part first. A person brings into what they're doing first their life experiences. In particular, when they're in a stressful situation, police training doesn't come up first. It goes back to your life experiences, the training that you got in life. And when you got a person who is uncomfortable with a person who's having a psychological break, when you have a person, a law officer, who is uncomfortable with a person of a different ethnicity, a person who's uncomfortable with a different gender, those type of things, those life experiences come into play. So how do you meet? I mean, in what manner do you mitigate those life experiences that you have so that the police training that you receive becomes number one? That's the concern that I've got.
You train and train and train.
But our police departments aren't doing that. Our law enforcement, even in school, our school administrators are not doing that. We got a lot of school administrators who have those same issues, and they don't have a gun that they can shoot kids with. But why do you think so many kids of color, in particular African American boys and Hispanic boys, are suspended and expelled from school? It's because those principals, those leaders, bring their life experiences in there. And when they get in a stressful situation, it's the first thing that happens is your life experiences, and then the training that we get from education comes in secondary. So I hear what you're saying. My concern is where are we going to get that from? How do we mitigate a person's life experiences so that they use the professional training, law enforcement, or education to be able to help situation? That's the part.
You correct their behavior when their life experiences are wrong or have taught them the wrong thing.
Okay, but
you have to fall back on your training. When I didn't know everything that I knew when I started in a law enforcement career. It was a foreign language to me. You know, I met people that were sons of law enforcement officers and people of that ilk, and they had a jump start, but it didn't stop me from being as a matter of fact, I think one of the reasons that I met the fate that I met with the police department was because I did have such life experiences. I know I'm a special person. So training. If it's training to write better, if it's training to deal with situations better, if it's you have to train whatever is in a person out of a person. The reason that we have all of these situations and issues, even in school situations, even at the police department, is from systemic racism.
Correct.
That's what it is. That's Correct. What we have. We have people that believe that other people are less than human beings. And it was taught to them from, like you said, their life experiences. So if the person cannot get past those life experiences and understandings, then they should be weeded out of the job classification or the modifications.
Agree, but what's the process for weeding them out? We've got a
psychological
lot of
tests. You have people that go through the academy. You have people that do all types of different ways to weed people out. You weed people out that don't have those issues in the process. The police department administrations look for people that will do exactly what is happening in our society. Nothing is done by mistake. The majority of people that run the police departments do exactly what they're supposed to do. They don't have a problem with the police department being ran the way it's being ran. The people who are being unjustly victimized, cruelly attacked, those are the people that have problems. So it's a mindset that has to be taught. Yes, police officers, as well as I'm sure school administrators, have ethnic diversity training. They have all of this training. They need more of it. They need to understand. And that's the only way you're going to get it, is through training.
I'm just curious as to how, when this training is supposed to come in. I mean, I agree with you that I believe that the training is an asset or an aspect to be able to overcome this. But where do you get it from? These same people who you're talking about are perpetuating the white supremacy in our two entities, education and law enforcement, are the same people who are doing the training.
Right.
And so,
well, no, I'm not going to say the same people that are doing the training. I'm not going to agree with that. They're the administration that oversees the whole of the industry, be it education or be it law enforcement, that are that way. It's not the training.
Well, in education, the trainers, most of the trainers are the problem. The people who are teaching and training administrators to become school administrators are the issue. And I don't, and it's not a matter of there being an issue on purpose, or that they are racist or any of those type of things, but they've bought into the white supremacy and racism, institutional racism that permeates the educational field.
Well, that's what I've been saying since we started this, way back when we were a radio show. That is the religion of our society: racism, white supremacy. So it's everybody's job to try and mitigate that, to remove that out of the equation. It's hard. It's not easy. It's hard. Yeah. But that's what the problem is that the people in power don't want to give up the power. They don't want to be treated as equals. They want to be treated as, as if they are something more than or special, more special than the next person.
So what's the answer? If that's the problem, what's the answer?
Well, if you could execute all the people that thought like that, you said that half the society is under 40 and the other half is, or there's more people under 40 now. You have to wait until the natural changes takes place, until they die off, or continue to educate them. When they say something or do something to you, you have to speak up. You have to tell them and stop them in their tracks with those types of pointed out to them. The problem with that is that when you have a difference of opinion with your boss or your administrator, and you point it out to them, they don't fare well with that. They take exception to that, and they want to lash out, and they want to lash out. And like the normal thing that people do is eliminate what they see as a problem, and whatever is different is a problem. It's that simple.
I'm into this part of my life where I'm into coming up with solutions. I know what the problems are. I know what the issues are. I know what the concerns are.
Then for you, what is the solution then?
I don't know. I'm still working on it. I don't have necessarily a way of doing that, but I'm not going to sit by and let attrition play out, because attrition, if you wait for attrition, that means that those legacies and people, the systems will never be corrected. The system will only change because the old people have died off, and that doesn't.
Well, I that was only a part. What I said was attrition was a part of it. The other part is to stop and speak up when you see something, when someone unjustly treats someone else. You have to be the defender or the super person for that, Okay, well, and as we're saying, to lighten it up a little bit, I'd like to say peace to all my Klansmen with your interracial grandchildren. Things are changing. You even say that every week. Things are changing. Things are changing. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And sometimes you just have to wait. You have to wait. But when things are brought to you, you have to. It's not a situation where, like what we were talking earlier in the evening, if you're out with your family on election night and their candidate has lost and they bring some issue to you, you need to be able to survive that issue. If it's, hey, please don't do that. We're just out as a nice family, and we're just trying to make it from point A to point B. Could you please go and deal with somebody else to protect your family? Then that's what you have to do. You have to be able to speak up for injustice when it happens to you. And it might take on many different forms, but you have to be able to survive the encounter. Or if you turn and turtle and run, then it's going to continue to happen. It's going to happen to you, and then 15 minutes later, it's going to happen to somebody else that looks like you, and 15 minutes later, it's going to happen to somebody else that looks like you and the person that just got assaulted or whatever, and it's going to continue until that action is stopped. Okay. That's society and where we are.
When you say that action is stopped, what do you mean by that action is stopped? I mean, getting away, walking away and leaving the situation stops the incident. If we're talking about self-preservation, you exiting yourself from a situation is a tool of self-preservation. That's a way of mitigating a situation. Doesn't mean that the next person who comes across that same encounter won't encounter a negative thing, but you yourself have, as you said, you've been prepared and you've been able to mitigate the negativity in that exchange. So I just, there's not one answer to any of these things we're talking about.
No, this is life. This is life. Things are going to continue to go on until they're stopped. Be it through death, be it through arrest, be it through a lot of different things. Till that person has a change of mind. It'll stop eventually. Everything has a beginning and everything has an end. It's what's in the middle that happens that counts, and people keep tally up.
So, you got me now to thinking about that new show that you got me hooked on, Lovecraft Country, and some of the storylines that goes on inside of that. Have you been keeping up with that?
Yeah, it's over.
You mean the season's over?
Yeah, the final episode is over.
With the Jigga?
I watched every episode.
Jigga Bobo?
Yes.
Okay, so the episode there towards the scene there towards the end where the white lady gets herself beat up on the pier and then thrown into the river.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Okay, because it was written by an African American and written and directed with the main influence of an African American woman, I think that what she was trying to show people is that, without sounding too harsh, white folks don't have empathy. White folks don't have an understanding of what it is to be treated in a certain way. The conversation that was had between her and I can't think of the lady,
the thicker sister. Yeah,
you're correct. The dark sister was about what it felt like, what it actually felt like to be in that position and to be in that predicament. So she went because she knew that she couldn't die. I'm trying to think of these names. The white lady had a premonition to understand what it felt like because she didn't have empathy for African Americans or for people that were put in that situation. So she went and paid 2 white guys to beat her and kill her, just like they killed Emmett Till, and throw her body in the river, just like they did Emmett Till, so that she could have that compassion, so that she could have that understanding, basically, so that she could be trained
Correct.
to understand.
Correct. So where in law enforcement do you see a process such as that occurring? Because I equate what she did 100% of what you're saying, but I'm just envisioning it in our 2 areas of employment. Yours on the law enforcement side, mine in the educational field. Where do you see a law enforcement agent or an educator putting them, not saying, understanding and realizing, I don't understand what's happening with my kids. I don't understand what's going on in this community in which I work. Let me go and take my licks and lumps so that on the other end of it, I'm going to be better for it.
Well, first of all, you have to have an open mind. You have to understand that you're not in the community to strictly enforce the law, that you are a human being, that you have compassion, and that you are dealing with people that are human beings, flesh and blood, and have compassion. So you might arrive on a scene where a mother is over a child who has just been murdered and bleeding out. Well, you have several things that you need to understand. You need to understand that you have to preserve the scene. You have to understand that she might be a witness to what happened. You have to go in with the training and the understanding and the mindset that you have to gather all of these things. And unfortunately, in Fresno, which is turning out to be back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, when I was trained, a killing field and a killing zone again, where you have these calls on a nightly basis, where you're going to domestic violence calls, or where you're going to homicides or shootings or stabbings. You know, you're going to these, and every time you go to these calls, you have to have your mind prepared to learn, not just to service that call. You have to go into that situation understanding that every call is a little bit different, and every situation and everybody needs to be handled as a first time or first term person. That all comes with training. You're not going to be the same officer that you were day one as you are your last day on the job.
So, but my question is more specific to that. Where does an officer get that training?
Like I've said several times tonight, you get the training on the job in the heat of the battle of the job, dealing with the individual people, and you get it in formal training, sitting in a classroom, being educated by people that have written books on this, that have taught this, the state certification that you need for advanced officer training every year or every 2 years. That's where that comes from. Now, if it's up to the individual who doesn't want to listen or doesn't want to understand, well, that's a whole situation, and then you have to take that person and as an administrative level, and say that this person just isn't getting it, and this person is not a good fit for my community and my society.
I got another suggestion. I think that you cannot, on-the-job training happens, but that's not the best teacher. Because if you're going in as a law enforcement officer,
go ahead.
If you're going in as an educator to an education situation, there's power that you bring to that situation. You are not on an even level with those that you're working with. I believe that if you're going to get the empathy that you're talking about, you got to go into those communities. You got to go to those people when you're not under the cover of law enforcement, when you're not under the cover of being an educator. Something as simple as when you go buy your groceries, going to go shop in the store that's in the community in which you're working. If there's a social event, going not as a law official or an educator, but going to this event as a person of the community. And we've gotten away from that. There's some examples that I can give you of people who are still doing that, but I would be willing to bet that in south of Shaw, of all the principals that are south of Shaw, I'll give you $100 if you can give me 10 of them, and there's probably more than 100 school sites, 10 of them that live in the communities in which they work. So here's a testament to what I'm talking about. Our buddy, Tim Lyles, who was the principal at Sunnyside High School less than 10 years. I don't know how many years it was exactly, but I know it was more than 5 and less than 10. Okay? Is getting, because of the impact he had on that community over there, he is being honored with a segment of the school, in front of the school, in his honor. Guess where Tim Lyles lived the whole time he was the principal at Sunnyside High School?
I know exactly where he lived.
A half mile from the school.
Okay.
So not only was he the educational head of the Sunnyside Pyramid, he was a community person there. He shopped there. He socialized out on when him and his wife went out to eat and go to dinner. They socialized in the restaurants that are out there on Clovis and Kings Canyon. He was he was a principal, but he was more importantly a part of that community. I would struggle to find you another example in educational leadership that's like that. And I think those when you talk about getting empathy, that's how you get empathy. You don't get empathy.
But that's not the only way that you get empathy.
Agreed. I agree with you. But I think it is an easy way, and I think that goes back to a person, the young lady, the white lady who's in the television series we're talking about, who has been painted as this witch and evil person. All of a sudden, at the end, because she's been shown and told, and it's been proven to her, hit her in the heart, that she has no empathy for black people, she pays these white boys to kick her ass on that pier, tie barbed wire around her neck like they did Emmett Till, and tie it to a weight and throw it over into the river, so that she can feel and understand, at least attempt to, what was going on with Emmett Till. How many educators or law enforcement people do you see doing that?
Well, once again, it depends on how you're looking at the elephant. If you grab the trunk, the leg, the tail, the tusk, to understand as a blind person, what it looks like. For the longest time, there were only 2, 3 officers that lived on the west side of Fresno. Okay? All African American. That was it. But you can't tell me that I didn't have empathy for the west side. You can't tell me that some of the other officers that were not even African American didn't have empathy for the west side. Because you can learn. We're human beings. We have the capability of learning through the proper training. Now, if you don't want to learn, and if you, like some, go over there because they think it's easier, or they don't want to have their kids exposed to that environment because it's been painted as a negative for so long, there's a myriad of reasons why officers don't live in the neighborhoods in which they patrol. But that doesn't mean that you can't have empathy for those folks. I understand what you're saying.
But that is a huge barrier to gaining empathy that you need to be successful in those settings.
So let me ask you this. So would you? Oh no, it's not a huge barrier. It's a consequence or a factor in. So would you only have people that live on the west side work on the west side, or live on the east side work in the east side?
No, because you need to have some.
So how do you incentivize the structure of education and the structure of law enforcement to live in less desirable places, just so that they can have an empathetic eye?
And this is the conversation that I had with Superintendent Nelson, who I've got the utmost respect for. You have not had any black male principals in your school district since 2012. Congratulations and thank you for now hiring 2 black male principals in your school district for 2021. I applaud you for that. It needs to happen. However, why did you send them to West Fresno?
I don't follow what that's what you just asked and said.
Both of those gentlemen that are hired, both of the black male principals that are hired in the district, have no personal connection, lived, born, grew up, worshipped, have no connections to West Fresno.
So what are you saying? He should have hired some people from West Fresno, or he should have sent some other people? He should have sent some other people that are qualified to West Fresno from a different community. I'm not following.
You need to not only send black male principals to West Fresno, they need to be sent across the rest of your district, as well as if you've got quality principals in your district and other areas, and you've got a school that's struggling, such as what was going on with Kirk, such as what was going on with a couple of the other schools that are there in West Fresno, these high quality principals that you've got across your district, if they can't go and work in West Fresno, then they shouldn't be working for your entity. They're not high quality.
I agree. I agree with that.
So that was my point to him. And he admitted that he had not thought about it. He understood what I was saying about the optics of it. And he committed that the next opportunity he has to hire African-American principals, he will not be looking to specifically place them in West Fresno. His three, actually, he just hired three black principals.
I'm going to push back on that because I'm glad that the black folks, you can shake your head all you want, but I am glad that he hired African Americans to run a leadership site in a place anywhere in the district. So now maybe these African American men can get a foothold and understand from the perspective where they are, and then venture out and bring somebody else with them. That's a whole different line or mindset.
That means that you're buying into and siding with the institutional racism that permeates Fresno Unified.
Who is?
You are. What you just said.
You're crazy. Okay. You're wrong again. Because your focus is so narrow, and it sounds like, and I don't want to sit here and attack you, but it sounds like
he hired three black principals this year, and all three of them are in West Fresno.
And you have a problem with that.
That is part of the institutional racism that has permeated Fresno Unified. The black people. So my question then is, would you rather them not have a job? Would you rather them not be principals in West Fresno? Would you rather them not be principals? They should be principals. They should be hired. They've hired 15. I want to say they hired 15 principals. Why do those black principals have to be put in West Fresno? Why can't they be?
Isn't your PhD on the leadership role of African American males as it relates to other as African American students?
No, it's about African American male leadership as school principals.
So a principal at a predominantly Caucasian school across town can be a leadership for the kids that are in West Fresno?
Yes, and if the person cannot do that, then they can't be part of what I believe, they can't be a strong part of the entity. If you can only work in one neighborhood or with one type of child in Fresno Unified, you're ineffective. You are part of the institution.
I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are.
So an officer in Fresno PD who can only work in West Fresno or can only work in any of the 5 precincts, cannot work in any of the other precincts, is he an asset or a detriment to the department?
As long as he can get the job done, then he's an asset.
I disagree.
Okay, of course you do.
You've got to be able to have interchangeable parts. And if what you do is good in place A, then those same strategies and techniques need to be implemented and be able to be replicated in other areas. And that is one of the issues that Fresno Unified has had, is that they've pigeonholed these different ethnic groups, as far as the leadership, into certain areas of the city. And until we can get rid of that, we basically are perpetuating the racism, white supremacy that's in the district. You know, when back in the day when we were kids, Stan McDonald was the principal at Hoover. Bullard and Hoover, very successful principal there. John Shropshire was out at Hoover, was out at Awani. African Americans was all over the city. African American male principals was all over the city. Why now? And the last African American principal that was in this district in 2012 was also in West Fresno. We have got to be able, if we're going to be able as educators to have a strong, vibrant base of leadership, you've got to have interchangeable parts. You know, back to my boy Tim Lyles. Tim Lyles would have been successful anywhere in this city because of his background, his empathy that he's gained from his personal relationships, his family, and the way that he grew up. Tim would have been a successful principal no matter what high school you put him at anywhere in this district. You can't say that for the other principals that you have here in Fresno Unified. And I think that is what the district, the leadership of the district, has a responsibility of doing, is making sure that you've got quality people that are interchangeable to be able to make your leadership cadre vibrant and healthy. And that's not what we've got going on here, unfortunately, here in the Fresno area. So I agree with you about the empathy part of it. And I agree with you about the training. But I also know that you have to be, empathy comes not under the cloak of your position. Empathy is gained more about what you do on a personal side. And so I just believe that. So anyway, we're up against it. It's a minute to 9. So anything else any other topics you want to talk about real quickly?
No, I see that. No, just to kind of follow up that we talked about last week with Ice Cube, I went back and rewatched the interview with well, not rewatched, for the first time with Roland Martin. I watched the interview with Chris Cuomo, and I'm still sticking with my guns. He came up with a plan. He tried to do something. He reached out there, and folks unfortunately didn't like it. I think that the reason they didn't like it is because
who didn't like it?
Because it was a lot of people, a whole lot of African Americans are lashing out behind the statements of, like you were saying, he needs to stay in his lane. He's an entertainer and not a politician. But I still stick behind him 110%.
I mean, my whole thing is, I hope he don't give up on him. I hope that he doesn't, because I applaud what he's trying to do. I just don't think he totally understands how to get it done. And so if he's true to the game, if this is really something of substance to him, I hope that he doesn't give it up. I hope that he continues to pursue it. He continues to tweak it and change it and add in and delete and talk to more people about it, because I believe that what he's doing, what he's attempting to do, is done in the right vein. I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning if he really understands the lane that he's attempting to get in. And I'm not sure that he's there yet. So, because it's going to be interesting. This time next week, we will have, the election will be over. We'll have some results in. I don't think it'll be done, but we'll have some results. You can kind of see what the lay of the land is going to be for the next 4 years. And go forward from there. So, anyway, again, please make sure you get out and vote. Please don't put your ballot in the U.S. mail. No disrespect to the U.S. mail, but they have even said that they cannot guarantee, with 6 days remaining, actually it'd be 5 days when we get up, 5 days remaining before the election, that they can guarantee that your ballot will be in your elections office before next Tuesday. So please use your drop box. Please vote in person. Please do your research to find out what is available to you as far as being able to cast your ballot. So, G-Money?
Hey, like I always say, stay beautiful. Love, peace, and hair grease.
All right. God willing, we will see everybody back here again next Wednesday at 8 o'clock for your next dose of In Touch with the Miller Boyz. Peace.